Good evening. So, coming down to day 4. Hopefully, you have been feeling all the stuff that I described in the text earlier, which should be happening now in day 4, which is where the body starts to really start to burn fat. And when it starts to burn fat, you have a lot more energy. The reason why you get tired on day 2 and 3, well, most people, some people don't get that tired, some people do get very tired. The reason being is you're so used to eating carbohydrates and glucose for fuel. And the carbohydrates, it breaks down the glucose in the stomach and then stores in the muscle as glycogen. So as long as there's glucose coming in, those muscle cells are always full. And the brain really likes glucose. The brain likes sugar for fuel. Now, what happens then is you take away that fuel source, and because your body is not what's called, the term that uses, fat adaptive, which means that your body can't really, it doesn't have what's called, we call it a metabolic switch. So metabolic switch means that metabolism means how you make energy. Basically, it's how you make ATP. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that is the energy source for every cell. Now, we can make ATP from glycogen, i.e. carbohydrates, or we can make ATP from fat, right? But you're so used to having glycogen readily available in the muscle that whenever you take that away, for example fasting, or if you did a keto diet, keto just means basically there's no carbs coming in at all, then your body has to switch that, flick that switch to start using fat for fuel. Now, I've been doing fasting for quite a while, 10 years. I did keto for 10 years before that. So I'm I've got good metabolic flexibility. I can flick the switch pretty quick. I know it because in the second day of fasting or second day of no carbs, I can taste the ketones in my mouth. It's like a metallic taste. So I know I'm switching over and I don't get the energy dips. Now, if you think about if we're using glycogen for fuel, you have fuel every time you eat. Whenever all that fuel kind of gets stored away, your blood sugar levels start to drop, you get hungry and you refuel again. Because realistically, you're eating carbohydrates normally every 2 hours. You might have your breakfast, lunch, dinner, you have a few snacks in between. So you're always putting in glucose, you're always putting in sugar, carbohydrates, always loading up. So your petrol tank's never really empty. And remember, the reason why we store fat is when all those glucose storage areas are full, i.e. muscle, liver, when they're both full up, the body then has to store the rest of that energy as fat in the fat cells, lipo tissue, right? So the fat you have in your body is the fact that you ate more energy than you were storing and using. That's why we store it then as fat. So now what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the petrol tank on empty, so we tap into those fat cells. So if the petrol tank's empty, the body goes, okay, we've stored this fat here for a reason. Now it's time to mobilize it and give it back to you so you can use it. And the biggest issue here is, it's like stopping at a petrol station and going, right, fuel up. You get the next petrol station down the street, you go, right, fuel up. You get the next petrol station down the street, right, fuel up. The petrol tank's never really empty. In fact, if anything, it's now overflowing because you just keep overloading the fuel tank, and then that excess fuel then has to store as fat because there's nowhere else for it to go. So when we fast, we want to have a metabolic switch, so if we run out of glycogen, we can go straight on those fat cells. For some people, because you're not used to doing this, you're not used to draining the tank. Like if we do resistance training, if I took you through a full body sort of circuit training with resistance, with weights, you would deplete all those muscle cells, so the body would have to tap on the fat cells to replenish it. Does that make sense? So that's why I've been saying, when you're doing your fasting, it's a really good idea to do resistance training, which you should be doing anyway, plus then cardio work. So that's why you get tired. Once you get to the 3rd day, 4th day, the body has learned how to flick that switch. So your energy then is more stable. Your sleep becomes better because there's less energy floating around your system whenever you're going to bed. Remember, your body has to manage that glucose when you're sleeping as well too. And if there's still a lot of energy floating around, it's going to be hard to sleep because you have to remember what's happening here from a nervous system point of view. You have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is your fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. That's the analogies we use for them. So if you're eating food, you're not in rest and digest, you're actually in fight or flight. So whenever you lie down and sleep, if your stomach's sort of empty or the blood glucose level starts to drop, the body can go into that nice deep sleep, because remember, fight or flight produces a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. Cortisol keeps you awake. So if there's less blood sugar floating around your system, there's less chance of that sympathetic nervous system being activated. There's less chance of cortisol elevation. There's more chance of you releasing melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. And then your sleep becomes better because your digestion becomes better, because you're not overloading the system. Listen, there's a simple rule here. If you think of this, think about evolutionary terms. This is the first time in human history, and the total length of our complete existence over time, hundreds and thousands of years, that we eat food multiple times a day, let alone every day. We're not designed for it, guys. We're just not, right? It's not how our body's supposed to work. We're supposed to be in more rest and digest. If you think about this, like even 100 years ago, if you were lucky, you get one meal a day, and sometimes you wouldn't even have got that, right? And you had to work manually all day long, manual labor, before you even got that meal. So your system was drained. There was no glycogen left. So whenever you did eat that meal, it literally replenished glycogen. There was no way for it to store. I know this is a very complicated process. I'm hoping getting this through to you. Right, so one more day left tomorrow, Friday, last day. This is the big day, right? Not from a point of view of we're doing anything different. We're going to just repeat what we did today, right? But a big day as in you're going to feel really good, right? You're actually going to be a wee bit annoyed that this is all stopping. But it is important that we stop. It's important that we understand that this is quite an aggressive sort of fat burning fasting protocol. And it's not something we should be doing all the time, because eventually hormones, especially for the ladies, hormones start to crash a wee bit. It's not good. But like I said at the start, this is a protocol you could do once a month, every month. You would feel fantastic. Your sleep would be regular. Your mood would be good. And you would start to lose body fat pretty significantly over that time, and it wouldn't feel like a diet because you only do it for 5 days every month. So, hi, it's 1-1.